Okay, everyone. I hope you're all well. I hope you're not in school too much. Okay, listen, we're going to cast our minds back quite well, actually, till September, October time last year, when we looked at contemporary issues within sport. And we're going to recap the bottom two learning objectives there. So we're going to identify the user groups who might participate in sport. As 9 different user groups. And then we're going to describe and be able to look at those barriers, and there's 8 barriers that might prevent those user groups from taking part in sport. So you need a pen and paper for this, so if you haven't got that, I want you to press pause and go and get it now, please. Brilliant, hopefully you've got it in front of you. And just a reminder that at any stage during this little lesson, you press pause, you can rewind and recap things as you see fit, okay? So on that piece of paper in front of you, I want you to write down, please, the 9 different user groups. And by user groups, we're talking about different groups in society that are similar, okay? So groups of people in society that have similar characteristics, similar needs, okay? You might not get all 9, but give that a go. Press pause now. Okay, so hopefully you've got some in front of you. I'm going to give you some little prompts with these pictures, and I'm going to give you 1 minute to try and add to any of that list that you've got to try and get all 9, using these pictures to help you. Okay, so 1 minute, press pause now, have a go at that. Okay, hopefully they've prompted your memory a little bit more and you've got a few more. This is what we should have. So we should have then ethnic minorities, retired people or people at the age of sort of 50 or 60, teenagers, children, and sometimes in an exam they will link the two together. We've got families with children, single parents, disabled people, the unemployed, and working singles or couples. So these are those 9 different user groups, and it's important that we know these and can link these to certain situations and certain sports. Now, these particular percentages that are on the screen, it's not essential that you know these percentages, but it's important that you understand the differences between these percentages. What I mean by that is if you look at teenagers there, so that percentage there is saying that 95% of teenagers take part in some sort of physical activity each week, and that's the highest percentage on there. Whereas, let's say, disabled or ethnic minorities, it's quite a lot lower. Now, as I say, you don't need to know those exact percentage figures, but you do need to understand why those differences take place. And the reason they take place and the reason those differences are there is because of barriers that are in place for some of these user groups. And barriers, we're talking about things that make it harder or more challenging for a certain group to take part in sport. And as you can see there, teenagers are going to have less barriers than some of those other user groups. Let's have a look at these barriers in particular then. On that pad of paper in front of you, I want you to jot down as many barriers as you can think of. And there's 8 main ones. There are more than 8, but there's 8 main barriers that can affect someone taking part or one of those user groups taking part in sports. Have a go at that and press pause now, please. Okay, so we should have some barriers down. These are the sort of things you should be coming up with. So a lack of time, it's important. Remember, we use that phrase lack of time or lack of money, rather than just saying time or money. In an exam, you wouldn't get a mark for just saying time. So a lack of time, usually caused by either children or work. A lack of disposable income, that means spare money that you've got when you paid your bills. Family commitments and childcare is sometimes a barrier. Accessibility of facilities or equipment, and a lot of the time that's linked with disabled people, but not always. Should have also had lack of role models, and by role models, remember, we're talking about someone that you can look up to and that you admire and aspire to, and some users have more role models than others. Awareness of vision, so there might be an activity, but the advertising and promoting of the activity might be poor, and therefore you might not know about it. We've then got provision of activities. So let's take swimming as an example with that in Bolsover. Okay, there's no swimming pool anymore in the centre of Bolsover, which means children and the people of Bolsover might do a little bit less swimming than, let's say, people living in the centre of Staveley, because they've got the living centre, or Clown, because they've got Go Active. So we talked in the lesson about skiing as an example. Okay, if you live in the French Alps, it's likely that you're going to do quite a bit of skiing. If you live in Bolsover, it's probably likely that you don't do much skiing because the provision of activities. And the final thing we've got there is the portrayal of gender issues, mainly by the media. So what we mean by that is, it's sometimes a barrier for someone taking part. Let's say one of the boys in the group might want to take part in netball. It's seen as a female-dominated sport, therefore you might be reluctant. It might be a barrier to prevent you taking part in that sport. The flip side is if you're a girl and you might want to get involved in rugby, you might feel, because it's portrayed in the media like it's very much a male-dominated stereotypical sport, that might be a barrier preventing you taking part as well. There are other barriers as well that you might think of, and some of those would get you a mark also in an exam if it fits that particular question. So on that sheet of paper in front of you, down the left-hand side, I want you to write down each of those different groups of people, or each of those user groups. And I want you to leave a couple of lines between each one. So you'll put ethnic minorities, leave a few lines, retired people, leave a few lines, families with children. And as you see there, for the purpose of this activity, we've got teenagers and children together. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do that now. Press pause, please. Okay, so you should now have that list down the left-hand side. What I want you to do now, and this is about a 15-minute task, is I want you to have a think for each of those user groups. I want you to think what barriers might be in place, what things are making it harder for those particular groups. You might want to rewind this a little bit and look at those 8 barriers again to help you fit in the answers for this, but you might think of other barriers as well. So first of all, next to ethnic minorities, you'll have a couple of bullet points, potential barriers that might be in place. Then you'll do the same for retired people, 50, and you'll work your way down that list. And this should take you about 15 minutes. So press pause now and have a go at that, please. Okay, that should be completed now. As we go through the answers, by all means, you can add a little bit to your answer. And if you've got anything missing, you can add that in as well. So let's have a look. For ethnic minorities, you should have put a lack of role models, okay? With the exception of, let's say, Mo Salah, a Muslim from Egypt, who plays for Liverpool. There's very, very few A players in professional football, and he's one of the few role models. So a lack of role models is quite a big thing, and be a barrier for ethnic minorities. There might be religious issues. So let's say if you're female, your religion might prohibit you from showing off parts of your body, in which case, if you want to go swimming, the swimming costume on, that might be an issue, therefore barrier. Retired people over the age of 50, if you want a state pension, you might not have much disposable income, and therefore that could potentially be a barrier, that lack of finances. And there might not be the accessibility of facilities or equipment. You also might not have the required amount of fitness to take part in certain sports. Families with young children, the big one you should have got here is childcare issues. Okay, lack of time as well is linked with that because you're too busy looking after children. And if you take a whole family for some sort of exercise or physical activity, then there might be a cost as well. So for that one, you've got potential cost problems, you've got a lack of time because you're looking after the children, and then you've got childcare issues as well. Single parents, if you've got a single income, a lack of money might be an issue, and what might also have, again, childcare issues because there's only one parent to the children. For teenagers and children, the less barriers than the groups, but the fact that you're at school means you can't do anything apart from PE during the daytime. You've got the gender stereotype in there that might limit you, prevent you from taking part in certain sports. And it's unlikely that you're going to have a lot of money because obviously you haven't got a full-time job as well. So a lot of income might come with that as well. For disabled, limited access is going to be an issue depending on what activity you want to take part in. And there might be the facilities there as well. And depending on your level of disability, you have an issue with transport as well, getting there. For the unemployed, we essentially here is a lack of disposable income, so it's unlikely you're going to have the money to take part in certain activities. And if you don't have much money, you might potentially not have a car as well, so again, transport issues might be an issue. And finally, working adults, the big one here is you're likely to have less time during the day. Okay, if you're working lowers, it's unlikely you're going to have time to do certain activities. And you might find in the evening after work that you might not have the motivation or energy to take part. So if you need to press pause now to add certain things into your answer, by all means do so. Moving on then, let's have a go at an exam question. Quite a simple 3-marker. So 3 reasons why families with young children may not be able to participate in sport. So have a think about barriers that we've just talked about, press pause and have a go at that. Okay, let's have a look at the marks for this then. There's quite a few answers to give for this, but it's only 1 mark per answer up to a maximum of 3. So you could have that they can't afford the cost of the participation, especially all the family won't take part. Family commitments might mean that you don't have the time to take part, and also you've got childcare there, that's number 3, if there's no one to look after children. It could be that there's no suitable activities for the children to take part at the particular leisure centre that you might go to. There might be transport issues if the family are having to go, and the timings of the activities might be unsuitable as well. Again, we've got a lack of time, but this time due to work commitments. And finally, you've got this, it could be there's alternative activities that the family might choose to do. For instance, that week they might decide to go to the cinema instead of taking part in sport. But the main things there, really, you're talking about childcare being an issue, you're talking about the fact that money might be an issue as well, and the fact that you might have time to take part. So to finish off, let's have a look at 3 questions then. So the first one, a local gym introduces an exercise class at 11 AM on weekdays, and it's wanting 2 user groups that are unlikely to be able to take part in that class. So have a go at that and press pause now, please. Right then, let's see what you've come up with. You should have children, because if it's 11 o'clock on a weekday, then children will be at school, and also some teachers, if they're still at school or if they're at college, also won't be able to take part. You've also got working singles or couples. So that user group predominantly are going to work through the daytime, always, but most of the time, and they're also unlikely to take part. So out of those 3, get you the 2 marks. Question. Emma is 16 and studying for a family would like to participate in more sport. You need to identify 4 barriers that might prevent Emma from taking part in sport. So this time we're looking at barriers and not user groups. Have a question and try and pick out things that you think might be a barrier. Have a go and press now. Let's see what you've come up with then. So a lack of free time is certainly going to be one, especially if she's studying for exams. She's going to be busy at school in the day and studying in the evening. She's female means that she's likely to have less role models than if she was male, because generally speaking, there's less role models for females than males. She's only 16, so she's not got a full-time job, and therefore there's going to be a lack of money or disposable income. And again, if she's female, it may mean that there's that portrayal of gender issues and stereotyping. So she might think that there's restrictions for her to take part in certain sports because she's female in a male-dominated sport. The final question today, the local leisure centre would like to encourage more people over the age of 60 to take part in their facilities. Suggest 3 reasons why over 60s may not currently use their local leisure centres. So press pause now and have a go at that one. Okay, these are the things to put. A lack of transport. Some people or elderly can drive, but not all of them, and therefore might be an issue. Again, if they're going to have less of a disposable income, so a lack of money might be a problem. Not have the fitness for certain activities. So if at that leisure centre there's rugby, football, netball, basketball, etc., then if you're over the age of 60, 70, unlikely you're going to take part in those. And there's a lack of role models for people of that age. So there might be plenty of models for a sport, but not necessarily role models for elderly people. So the focus of this session was to be able to identify those 9 user groups and be able to identify those barriers, and not just being able to list them, but being able to link the 2 together and understand the certain situations that might cause barriers and which user groups those barriers might. So it's a case of being able to link the 2 together. But as a little recap, let's see which of those we can remember. So, using your fingers to count, how many of those 9 user groups you will list now? I'm going to give you 30 seconds to have a go at that. Press pause. Okay, how many of the 9 did you come up with? If you didn't get all 9, over the next week you get family members to help test you to see if you can increase that number that you can remember. Now, let's have the same again, but this time with barriers. How many of those 8 barriers, count on your finger, can you come up with? 30 seconds to have a go at that. Press pause. Okay, these are what you should come up with. Those 4 on that slide, how many of those did you manage to get? And finally, we've got those 4 on that side. Again, family members can always help you throughout the week. Okay, so lesson will develop this a little further, and we'll look at ways that you can overcome those barriers and ways that various leisure centres and sporting organisations help overcome those barriers. So we'll see you again next week. Stay safe, everyone.